Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're doing something really exciting. We are bridging the gap between everyday personal finance strategies and elite macroeconomic investing philosophies to build your ultimate wealth blueprint. Basically, we're going to connect the dots between exactly how you manage your biweekly paycheck and how billionaires manage their massive portfolios. So, what does the top 1% actually understand about money that most of us just don't? Well, to find out, we're synthesizing some absolutely incredible insights from two brilliant yet very different minds. First up, we have money expert Nisha Shah. She actually walked away from a super lucrative investment banking career just to entirely rethink what success actually means. And second, we've got legendary billionaire investor Howard Marks, founder of Oaktree Capital. This is a guy whose financial memos are famously read by Warren Buffett himself. Together, their experiences reveal how true wealth is really about managing what you have, deeply knowing yourself, and expertly navigating the unpredictable.
Here's the game plan for today. 1. Redefining financial happiness. 2. The foundation of wealth. 3. Investing basics and indexing. 4. Macro cycles and psychology. 5. The contrarian investor edge. And finally, 6. Adapting to an unpredictable future. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Redefining financial happiness.
Okay, before you even open a bank statement or fire up an investment app, we need a massive paradigm shift. Nisha Shah points out a pretty hard truth here. Earning more money doesn't automatically make you better with money. I mean, there are plenty of folks out there earning massive six-figure salaries who are still living paycheck to paycheck simply because they're constantly chasing society's definition of financial success. True financial happiness, though, that actually means spending in alignment with your own deeply personal core values, not just buying stuff to show other people that you can afford it. Shah herself admits that with her very first investment banking paycheck, she bought a ridiculous, flashy new car purely for the status. It was a classic case of letting society dictate her spending. The real, permanent shift happens when every single dollar you spend moves you closer to your intrinsic life goals rather than dragging you further away from them.
Section 2. The foundation of wealth.
Now, to actually build this foundation, you first have to overcome something called the ostrich effect. You know the feeling, right? It's that terrifying psychological urge to just bury your head in the sand and completely ignore your bank account. Well, you have to look. Shay lays out these concrete steps to help you finally escape survival mode. Step 1 is simply saving $2,000 in cash. Step 2 is building a larger 3 to 6 month cash cushion. Step 3, and this is a big one, is paying off high-interest debt, specifically anything charging you over 8% in interest. This is absolutely critical, because historically, the stock market returns about 8 to 10% a year. So any debt costing you more than that is actively draining your wealth way faster than you can build it. And finally, step 4 is investing the rest. Shay emphasizes that you desperately need this safety net in place before you can ever confidently take risks, like leaving a soul-crushing job or starting a new venture.
But really, why is step 1 so crucial? Well, get this. According to Vanguard research, just saving that initial $2,000 increases your overall financial well-being by a massive 21%. Just think about that. That one simple act instantly moves you out of scarcity mode and gives you the psychological breathing room you actually need to start planning for your future.
So to sustain that foundation over time, Shah recommends a highly effective, super simple budgeting breakdown of your take-home pay. You allocate 65% to your fundamentals. We're talking rent, groceries, the absolute must-haves. 25% goes to fund, because hey, you absolutely still need to enjoy your life. And a strict 10% goes to the future you, which is your saving and investing bucket. The real trick here is that you set that 10% aside first, entirely automatically, before you even have the chance to spend it on something else.
But here's a crucial point we have to remember. Saving will only get you so far. I mean, think about it. You can only cut out so many daily coffees or streaming subscriptions before you hit rock bottom. Saving is inherently finite. Focusing on increasing your earning potential, on the other hand, that's infinite. If you focus your energy on creating more value, solving bigger problems, or learning high-income skills, there is essentially no ceiling to what you can make. Expanding your income while rigidly maintaining your baseline spending habits is absolute rocket fuel for your finances.
Section 3. Investing basics and indexing.
All right, now that we've mastered our daily habits and got a rock-solid foundation in place, what do we actually do with that 10% bucket met for a future? Both of our sources, Shah and Marks, agree on a fundamental truth of the financial universe. Picking individual stocks consistently is basically impossible. Shah notes this wild anecdote that right before the devastating 2008 crash, some of the smartest, highest-paid analysts in the entire world at massive investment banks gave Lehman Brothers a buy rating. If those experts with endless access to data get it wrong, it's incredibly risky for the average person to try their luck. Howard Marks heavily echoes this, pointing out that indexation took over the investing world, not just because it's inherently good, but because active management has historically been so incredibly bad at beating the market. Buying a broad, low-cost index fund allows you to reliably and passively capture the market's long-term compounding growth.
Section 4. Macro Cycles and Psychology.
But why does the broader market move the way it does? Let's zoom out to the macro level with Howard Marks for a second. He explains something fascinating. While the historical average return of the S&P 500 over the last century is about 10%, the market almost never actually returns between 8 and 12% in any given calendar year. The norm is almost never the average. Why is that? Because human emotions, specifically intense greed and paralyzing fear, push the market to massive, irrational extremes, causing wild fluctuations year over year.
Instead of thinking of market cycles as simple, mechanical ups and downs, Marx views them as fundamentally human-driven periods of excess followed by inevitable corrections. You see, an economy naturally has a steady trend line of growth, but eventually people get overly optimistic. They experience what Alan Greenspan famously called irrational exuberance. People suddenly think trees grow straight up to the sky. They spend too much, they build too many factories, they overborrow, and boom, we get a massive bubble. But when that over-optimism finally meets reality, we get a painful correction, or a recession, violently swinging the pendulum all the way back to the trend line.
Section 5. The Contrarian Investor Edge. So if the market is constantly swinging violently between greed and fear, how do the truly elite players take advantage of these emotional cycles? By going exactly where others are completely terrified to tread. Marx famously built his fortune starting in the late 1970s in distressed or junk bonds. The consensus crowd of investors was utterly terrified of these bonds and refused to even look at them, which meant Marx could swoop in and buy them at a massive discount with incredibly high promised interest rates. And because he intelligently exploited that widespread market panic with careful, rigorous analysis, 99% of his bonds paid interest and principal exactly as promised. He secured an exceptional return with relatively low risk simply because everyone else was running the other way.
To achieve this staggering kind of success, Marx says you must be a second-level thinker. It's absolutely not enough to just think differently than the highly educated Wall Street crowd. You have to actively think better. You must possess superior insight, aggressively remove your ego so you can constantly adapt to new information, and fundamentally analyze complex human psychology. Because the harsh reality is this: if you think the exact same way as everyone else, well, your investments are going to perform exactly the same as everyone else's.
Section 6. Adapting to an Unpredictable Future.
As we look ahead, especially with the explosion of artificial intelligence and rapidly shifting global economies, how do we future-proof this wealth blueprint? Marx anchors his entire worldview in a profound concept he learned while studying Japanese literature back at Wharton. It's called Mujo. It teaches us that change is completely inevitable, uncontrollable, and unpredictable. We really shouldn't exhaust our energy trying to guess highly specific future events, because history is just full of independent random variables. Instead, we simply have to accommodate the fact that continuous sweeping change is coming no matter what.
And this brings us to the fundamental difference between amateurs and professionals. Predicting the future is impossible. If you build your finances expecting one very specific outcome, you leave yourself completely vulnerable to sudden, devastating shocks, often called black swans. But preparing for the future? That is highly possible. You can intelligently prepare a portfolio and an overall lifestyle that will do just fine across a wide variety of wildly different futures. You're basically intentionally sub-optimizing for the broad middle of the probability distribution, rather than recklessly gambling your entire livelihood on the extreme edges.
When it comes to the future of investing and AI, Marx notes that AI is undeniably incredible at discovering past patterns and extrapolating them instantly, without any emotional bias. But investing excellence requires superior human insight. AI can seamlessly process all the quantitative data that everyone already has access to, sure, but the true lasting edge will heavily remain with humans who can calmly navigate totally novel situations, innovate when there are absolutely no historical patterns to draw from, and deeply read complex human psychology.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to really reflect on a deeply personal realization from Howard Marks. For the first few decades of his life, he freely admits he was just letting the river take him, passively drifting through his career. Real wealth, profound success, and true fulfillment only began the exact moment he stopped drifting and intentionally took absolute control of his path. Whether it's doing the hard work to save your first $2,000
or analyzing global market cycles, the blueprint requires your relentless, intentional action. So, are you going to keep drifting, or are you ready to take the wheel?